Silence is everywhere. Everything looks nicer and calmer. Dr. Ryan Stone will make his first space trip, and along with his colleagues, he will start the communication part for the Hubble telescope system. The medical team becomes concerned about Dr. Stone's ECG, so they ask him to withdraw from the operation, but the doctor refuses. Matt Kowalski, a certified astronaut, travels alone inside a jetpack to test the jet's performance. The engineering team asks him for information, and instead, Matt tells a story about his first trip to space. The same time when he spent 42 days in space, and all this time he has been waving to his fiancée. Then, when he returns to Earth, he discovers his fiancée's betrayal. Houston asks Matt to drop the repetitive stories and describe his assessment of the jetpack's performance. So, after declaring 30% fuel consumption, Matt also expresses his satisfaction with the jet. Dr. Ryan, who fails to launch the communication device, decides to try again. Ryan tries, but again, Houston declares the operation a failure. Ryan guesses that the problem is probably with the admin panel. So he decides to fix it and asks for an hour for this. Sharif, after the end of his work, engages in a spacewalk and is happy about this opportunity. Kowalski asks Houston for permission to help Dr. Stone retrieve the panel. Permission is granted and Matt walks over to Ryan. Moments later, Houston reports that a missile has hit a Russian satellite, leaving a pile of debris traveling at 2,000 miles per hour. Of course, it also promises that currently, the orbit of the debris movement is different from the path of the probe. Matt and Ryan continue their work. Matt asks the doctor about how he feels about being separated from Earth. He also talks about his favorite peace and quiet. Matt starts telling the story again, and at this moment, a state of emergency is declared. With the news of a chain reaction from the waste pile, Houston asks the probe to cancel the operation and the astronauts to return inside the probe. Matt and Ryan try to get back into the probe. But Houston informs that most of the satellites, and for that, the systems have been disconnected, and probably soon, their communication will also be disconnected. At this moment, Matt sees part of the waste. Then he sees one of them encountering Sharif. He worriedly informs Houston, and at the same time, he notices that the auxiliary arm that Dr. Stone was attached to has come off. He asks Houston for help again, but it's like the connection has been lost. Matt asks Ryan to concentrate and remove the link from his arm before he gets too far. Ryan finally separates himself, but is already out of Matt's sight. Matt asks Ryan to state his position. But Ryan is terrified, and as he turns, he gets further and further away from Kowalski. Finally, Ryan gathers all his concentration to survey the surroundings. So he announces his position like this: the US space station is at 7 o'clock, and the Chinese space station is in sight. Ryan runs his position report well, but doesn't hear a sound from Kowalski. He despairs again and finds himself alone in the universe, but after a few moments, Matt talks to him again and asks Dr. Stone to turn on his light. Then it doesn't take long before he hugs the doctor. Matt uses his sarcastic spirit to tell Ryan about her beautiful face, while also tying himself to Ryan with a rope. Then he creates a short distance between himself and Ryan, and they move towards the shuttle. Matt also asks Ryan to state the situation. Ryan reports her oxygen level at 8%. So, Matt asks her to keep calm and not waste oxygen by panting. Then he tries to contact Houston to request the probe to prepare the air chamber. Of course, there is still no sound from Houston. So they both continue on their way and finally reach the shuttle. Matt tries again to contact Houston and get permission from the center to search for the bodies of the astronauts, but still fails. Near the shuttle, they come across the body of one of their colleagues. Dr. Stone, seeing his disfigured face, is deeply offended. Matt connects the body to the shuttle through a connecting ring and goes to the front door. Suddenly, he encounters a disastrous scene. The shuttle was also hit by debris and the astronauts inside were also dead. This time, Matt calls Houston and introduces himself and Dr. Stone as the only survivors of the shuttle. So, once again, they move. This time they decide to go to the International Space Station. Along the way, Matt tries to keep Ryan hopeful. He asks Ryan about his hometown. Then about marriage and the loved ones he has on Earth. At first, Ryan expresses despair and, considering the 2% oxygen level in her tank, sees death imminent. But with Matt's insistence, she describes her life. I live in Illinois, I go out at night after the hospital shift and I drive for a long time. Matt asks her why she drives all the time. Ryan explains that, a long time ago, her 4-year-old daughter died in a fall and she heard the news while driving. Hence, after that, driving and listening to silent music has become an important part of her life. Then Matt gives Ryan 2 news. First, the jetpack fuel is running out, and secondly, until the International Space Station, they are only 5 minutes apart. After a few minutes, they approach the space station. Then Matt throws himself towards the station and due to the fuel running out and the combustion chamber being empty, they lose the ability to brake and are forced to use their hands to connect to the station. Ryan tries to grab the handholds but fails and the rope connecting her to Kowalski also breaks. Ryan spins and spins while being very scared and suddenly, one of her legs gets stuck in the rope of the parachute. Kowalski approaches Ryan to save her life, but is separated from the spaceship himself. Ryan quickly grabs Matt's rope and tries to pull him towards her, but every moment, her foot slips out of the rope's knot. Matt realizes this and asks Ryan to let him go and save her life. Ryan tries to hold on to the rope, but Matt detaches the ring and is suspended in space. Ryan is impressed and meanwhile is drawn to the spaceship. She crashes into the spaceship body many times and loses her concentration power. At the same time, Matt's voice comes. He asks Ryan to find pure air and save herself. Ryan complains to Matt about separating the ring. Matt also asks her to hope for life and stay alive. Then he tells himself about Ryan's possible interest and asks her opinion. Ryan smiles for Matt's wit and calls him nice. Then Ryan tells Matt that she will get into the Soyuz and follow him. But Matt, considering his distance from Ryan, he asks her not to do this and take the Soyuz to the Chinese ship. Because the severity of the damage to Soyuz is such that it will not bring Ryan to the ground. Afterwards, Matt enthusiastically tells of the sunrise he observes, describing its beauty over the Ganges River. Ryan also starts exploring the air chamber. Due to lack of oxygen and carbon dioxide breathing, he gets dizzy. But he continues to try. After much effort, he finds the compartment and enters. First, he fills the chamber with oxygen and then, when he has no strength left, he quickly takes off his clothes and then rests like a fetus in the mother's womb. Then he tries to contact Matt in the center, but is unsuccessful. Suddenly, he notices the warning system about a part of the ship catching fire. He tries to extinguish the fire with the capsule and when he sees its intensity, he closes the air chamber door. Then he begins to find a way to separate himself from the rest of the ship. He finally succeeds. But after a few seconds, he is pulled towards the ship by the ropes of the parachute. Ryan becomes anxious, but tries to control the pace. Finally, it stops the Soyuz. But he is forced to leave the ship to separate the ropes. He goes to work. Work is going well. But after a few moments, satellite debris starts raining and Ryan, fearful, speeds up his work. Then, while there is nothing left to finish, the debris collides with the ship and causes more damage to it. Of course, Ryan succeeds and, disgusted by the space, returns to the compartment and continues on her way. First she tries to focus on the Shenzhou ship. Then she hits the disconnect button. But the isolation doesn't work and she is forced to check the keys again and after some struggle, she realizes that the ship is out of fuel. She gets very sad and tries to contact the center. Suddenly, a connection is made and Ryan is happy. The communicator speaks in Chinese and Ryan tries to declare an emergency. Then he asks her name and introduces himself as Anninggang. But suddenly, she hears the sound of a dog and realizes that the call is from Earth. Ryan despairs again and cries because his death is near. Ryan also hears a baby crying and is reminded of her daughter. So she decides to prepare herself to meet her. She asks Anninggang to continue singing lullabies to her baby, so Ryan will also fall into eternal sleep. After that, she dims the ship's light and shuts off the oxygen supply and sleeps quietly in the chair. But after few moments, Matt knocks on the glass of the compartment, attracting Ryan's attention. Then she opens the door and enters the ship. He turns on the lights and turns on the oxygen, berating Ryan for doing so. Then while Ryan is surprised by his return, he tells about finding an extra battery for the jetpack. Then he goes to the drinks and drinks them calmly. Ryan informs Matt that there is no fuel. However, Matt talks about the capability of landing jets. Ryan reminds her that these jets are for landing, not flying. But Matt doesn't agree with her and considers these jets suitable for landing, and finally asks Ryan to prepare herself to walk on the ground. Ryan wakes up and doesn't see Matt. Then she decides to find the landing function from the book and implement it. She is busy carrying out the instructions of the book. She has to trick Soyuz and tell it that she is 3 meters from the ground. Meanwhile, she talks to Matt and asks him for her daughter, finds Sarah and hug and kiss her on behalf of her mother and tell her about her mother's longing. After that, it separates the 3 parts of the Soyuz. Finally, she hits the final key and is thrown forward. Ryan checks her distance with Shenzhou and exits the ship at the right time. Along with a fire extinguisher, she provides the necessary fuel to move forward and directs her path towards Shenzhou. She eventually reaches the Shenzhou, but finds it moving and scrolling fast. She enters the air compartment with difficulty and realizes the emergency situation inside the ship. She tries to control the situation, but since she doesn't know Chinese, she presses the buttons, guessing where each key is. Then she tries to contact Houston. She informs about her critical condition and that she may melt in the ship in a few moments. After a few moments, Shenzhou's pieces are separated and all of them are quickly thrown to the ground. Near the ground, Ryan hits the disconnect button. Then Shenzhou opens the parachute at 3 meters from the ground and the speed of the chamber is controlled. While the chamber is on fire, Houston contacts Ryan and asks her to report the situation. Then he assures her that the rescue team has been sent to her. Ryan lands on the water. She opens the door. But she immediately pours a lot of water inside and stops Ryan from leaving. Ryan goes underwater with Shenzhou. She leaves the ship. Then she swims to the top, but the suit blocks her progress. Hence, it takes off the clothes. Ryan finally reaches the surface. She swims to the shore and is happy to touch the sand.